The fact that people don't understand you could even burn coffee is something that pisses me off.
Yeah.
Like, it's a fact that people should understand and learn in life. It should be like something we should throw in school curriculum. Like, fucking understand the process of how coffee should be made and the fact that you can burn fucking milk, you asshole. Used to have a liquor store on the first floor.
Oh, that'd be dangerous,
Yeah.
bro. See, that's the problem. Is like every time I try to populate the bar cart, I drink it. So then I gotta just one day just go on a like.
Well, now you have Drizzly, man. You don't even have to go to your liquor stores anymore. You just fucking order everything online.
What's that? I've never heard of that.
Drizzly, I forget who they just got bought up by, like not too long ago. But they basically, think of like Uber Eats, but just for liquor, right? So they pick up liquor from like any liquor store near you, deliver it right to your house.
I like this. And now when you go to the liquor stores, they're all like, we do delivery and this and that. I'm like, yeah, we're just getting lazier and lazier. Like as a fucking society, we're getting to a point where I don't have to leave my crib for anything. If I actually wanted, I could just stay in my house for a year. I'd go crazy. I can't even do a day. But I'm saying if I wanted, I could just get everything delivered to me.
You could, but you'd need some social interaction, right?
They could come to your house.
Yeah, but fuck, who interacts with their delivery guy? I mean, that interaction's like minor. It's like
I'm just saying, like
a few seconds. I mean, like, you would crave interaction, you know, outside
from
of
me. But there's just a lot of people out there who just fucking. I mean, they don't need it as much. We don't see it, man, because we are social. But there's a lot of people who are just completely happy not interacting with humans.
You know, these days in my life, I feel like my social circle is as small as it's ever been in my life. At 38 years old, almost 39 now, I keep less people around me than I probably ever have in any previous point in my life. Which, I mean, I guess is also because the reasons why I have certain people around me in my life differ tremendously from the reasons why I used to have people around in my life, you know, before, right? Mm-hmm. That like circle of influence is more important to me. So I'd rather have it be like smaller and more influential to my life. Like just as being an entrepreneur, for example, like there's certain conversations that like I just can't even seem to have with certain friends, right? It's like all they want to talk is fucking baseball or basketball or what the Patriots are doing, etc. And don't get me wrong, like I love all those things as well. But I don't, you know, I'm not getting anywhere in fucking life based off of like who, you know, who's wide receiver one for the fucking Patriots this season, you know, and who's not. So, you know, and then other people, you know, I can have those conversations with, right? Like, you got like certain friends that might be bankers or something that you can talk more like finance or investing or shit like that. Some of my other friends you might talk to about like cryptocurrency and they stare at you like you're like I don't know, like I've just fucking told them that I saw an alien or something. Yeah.
I'm finding that more and more in my life too, man. I was like an avid Pats fan. I would actually get upset if I was like late to start a game. Last season, I don't think I watched a whole game. I like
last season there was a lot of good excuses to not watch a whole game of the Patriots.
But like not even just Pats, bro, just football in general. Like, you know, I'm buying back a whole day out of a week.
Yeah.
You know, and I still love football. I actually like told myself this year I better be a little bit better in my business where I can take Sunday to kind of chill and watch some football. But I think my priorities are just shifting, and that's like what you see too when the people that you're hanging out with and who you're spending your time and energy on. It's because it's not just time, right? It's like you need to keep that energy for your business, for your kids, for your wife, for your family, right? And there's only a certain amount of energy units in a day. You can't give it to anything. I mean, fuck your fantasy team. Like I haven't played. Like I just don't care.
Yeah,
like,
it's just I guess for me, it's I try to take the moments throughout the day or throughout the week or throughout the month, right? And if it's not throwing something at me that's helping me learn something, right? Whatever the fuck it is, right? Like for example, like I started doing this new thing where it's like I read 15 pages before I go to sleep, right? Now, I haven't been like great with it since I got back home from my vacation, but I'm trying, I'm making the attempt. And
That's all that matters.
When I ask some friends like, hey, what are some books I should read, et cetera, a bunch of them just send me back some bullshit that for me is like, I don't want to sit here and read, fictional stories and whatnot. Like I would much rather read stories about, I don't know, like different entrepreneurs or something like this, like things like, what is it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, just to throw out an example, right, of a book that everyone's, a lot of people have read and shit that has to do with finances, that stuff, like it teaches you, it helps you learn something, better something maybe in your life, turn on a light bulb in your fucking head that wasn't, previously.
That quadrant changed my life in that book.
Yeah.
Those are from self-employed, employed, investor, whatever, all that, like that, it's valuable, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that and the comment, like I said, I still like to have the fucking, the stories talking about, sports and shit like that are my favorite players, but it's also, I can't spend too much time on things like that. I need to have more, how do I say, like things need to be more constructive in my life nowadays. And like you said, no matter what I'm doing throughout the day, it's like I have to go home with something in reserve for the tank because I got a fucking kid, I got a wife. So you still got to go home and be, dad and, and husband at the end of the day, no matter what the fuck it is that I'm pumping out throughout the day. So
100%. I feel like we already started the podcast. So Richie Monis, welcome to It's Not That Deep. Appreciate
Cheers,
you, brother. Cheers.
Thank you.
We are drinking your favorite drink, and
it's one of my favorite summertime drinks. Yeah.
It's one. So I texted you before this. I'm like, what's your actual favorite drink? And you gave me 3 options, but this is the one we went with today. For those who don't know, you own a cocktail catering company.
Yes.
You've been doing it for nearly a decade.
Yep.
And you've been in the space for way longer than that. We have an interesting story of how we met.
Yeah.
I feel like let's kick it off there. And,
all right, let's do that.
I could kind of tell my side of it, but we were at VCon. This was a couple years ago now.
Yeah.
And I'm just walking around, and I'm wearing this jersey. That's why I'm wearing it for this podcast, to kind of commemorate that. But I'm walking down, and my business partner Jamie actually had suggested that I pack the jersey before we even go on the trip.
Smart guy.
And I was like, absolutely a smart guy. I was like, at first I'm like, dude, that's corny. Like, I know I'm a Pats fan, but like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not trying to I don't need to raise any eyebrows. Like as much as I'm a big dude, I like to just blend in and be behind the scenes, But I'm like, you know what? Last second, I'm like, I throw it in because you never know. Because he's like, dude, like Gary Vee's such a passionate Jets fan. Like, you never know. If you see him, you might get a rise out of him. And so, long story short, that actually did happen at VCon. I remember walking down, I'm wearing the jersey, and he just comes up to me and he's like, bro, like what the fuck? He's got his whole camera crew, everyone around, and it made it to one of his vlogs and whatever. But like I just had a great moment with Gary, and it was awesome because everyone's like coming up to him, and it's weird because he came up to me, right?
Right.
And that's just like me peacocking and just trying to stand out. But the secondary impact of that, of wearing the jersey, is I met a lot of really cool people, and one of those people was you. And I remember it clear as day, where you were actually like, go Brady or something like that, but you were like pretty far, like you were like on the other side other side of the hallway. Exactly. And you were with your wife, and I remember coming up to you and just having just a nice little conversation, like, oh yeah, like, I'm a Pats fan, you're a Pats fan, and we were just vibing out, and you were telling me, I believe Rhode Island, or what
Rhode
is
Island,
it?
yeah.
Talk to me about your side of that story, because I want to hear it.
Yeah, so it was, so again, like, being a Pats fan anywhere in the country is never easy, right? I've lived in San Diego, California, now, lived here in Miami and South Florida. It's never easy to rep a Patriots jersey, so anytime you see one out in public, at least for me, Patriots hats, jerseys, t-shirts, whatever it is, I always give a shout out. So I see you walking in the hallway, and I'm walking with my wife. I forget, it's probably like in between speakers, or I'm trying to make my way to another speaker, who knows, right? It was like fucking chaos in between speakers. So I'm heading somewhere, and I just see, you always spot the Brady fucking jersey in the Pats colors. And so I see that, and it's like, it was just kind of one of those like shout through a sea of fucking people, right? Like, let me catch your attention.
Yeah.
Like, hey, big ups for the jersey. And then I don't even remember how we converged at that moment. But yeah, somehow we get into that conversation. And I remember like one of the things that I kind of took from that conversation, obviously we were talking about what we did, and I was probably talking about my business, and then you started talking about yours. And it was interesting because I'm kind of at that time in my business where I'm looking to do something to try to market my business. And you started talking about TikTok, right? And so it was interesting because nobody previous to this had talked to, everybody heard everything about Google fucking ads and Facebook ads and Instagram's dead and all this other stuff. But yeah, you were talking this game on fucking TikTok, and I was like, he's got a good point, whatever. And I remember just getting your information and was like, I'm gonna contact this guy, and we'll do something together. And then ironically, you were also here in the city where I lived, right? So that was like totally random as well.
That was something that I remember us connecting on, because I was just like, I was so just fresh. I had just like kind of moved to Miami. I literally moved in May, and I didn't even like officially move there yet. Like, I was talking shit.
Right.
Like, I have literally a Canadian on like a visitor's visa, basically, just coming down and being like, let's see what happens type of thing. I was living in Colombia at the time, and then I came but going to these conferences and meeting people like yourself, like, actually had a tremendous impact on my journey. Because I'm like, oh, this is easier than in Colombia, where people don't speak my language. And if I wore a Brady jersey, they'd be like, what is that?
Right,
like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, this is easier, this is more fun. And I'm meeting really cool people. And yeah, I just remember mentioning that, yeah, like, moved to Miami, and this is, like, you're like, I live there. I'm like, that's crazy. And, meeting your lovely wife as well. She was so nice, so sweet. And it was just awesome to see, like, a couple like yourself really stand out from the crowd there, right? These NFT heads and these these crypto people.
It's a crowd.
It's an interesting group of people,
Yeah,
and it was the first
eclectic.
VCon, right?
Yep.
So it was cool. And then fast forward a few months go by. We're back in Miami, not really in like regular contact. We hadn't even met after that.
Yeah.
But I don't know who reached out to who or what happened, but we decided to meet up for a drink. And you suggested this spot named Swizzle. Here in South Beach. And shout out to Swizzle. And it was just one of the most, like, I love the butterfly effect and the ripple effect of things, like just like you saying, go Brady.
Right.
Because then from that, meeting, I met, Pisco Papi, Andre, who works for you, and a few of your other buddies as well that night. And we had a fun night.
Yeah,
we had a few drinks and we got loose. And to me, that's always how I've wanted to do business in an ideal world. Can I grab a drink with this person? Can we vibe on a human level? Let's worry about the money and the marketing and the whatever, the TikTok, all that.
Right.
After that, obviously I want to provide some value to you, but do we like each other, or is this just transactional?
Right.
I want to go from the more human relationship. And look, we've been working together kind of ever since, and it's been a really fun journey. So I'm really, really excited to have you on the It's Not That Deep podcast. Finally, Richie, this is going to be a fun show because there's a lot to cover, man.
I'm pumped.
Cheers, my man. So one of the things I kind of want to start off, this conversation with is, what got you into this space?
You mean like cocktail catering in general?
Yeah, it's so specific, it's so niche.
So, all right, I just celebrated literally a couple days ago. It was my 10-year wedding anniversary. And so 10 years ago, I kind of went through that process of planning for a wedding. Or rather, when I say planning, I should say paying for a wedding, because I didn't really plan a fucking thing. My wife planned pretty much all of it in Mexico. But I kind of went through that process and understanding, like, the cost associated to a wedding and all the different elements that went into it, et cetera, right? I had done some events for the previous company that I worked for, but at that time, when I was here in Miami, I was just primarily bartending, working in a few places here in Miami, like really kind of carving out my, art and mixology, if you would say, right? So at that time, a lot of my friends are getting married. So I'm going to a bunch of different weddings. So I'm going to a combination of like all my wife's friends' weddings, and I'm going to all my buddies' weddings at the same time as well. And at one point I was standing there in a wedding. This was in San Diego, California. So I had a best friend who was getting married there, and I was actually in the wedding party. So I was the best man, so I'm being pulled in a million directions, you know, the whole time. Photos here, photos there, you gotta go here, give this fucking speech, blah, blah, blah. And it's like halfway through the wedding and I'm completely sober. And I remember looking at like my brother and saying like, I need to get a fucking drink. And so we walked to like the corner of this room because that's where somebody told us the bars were. And there was this like single file line. So it looked like you were like waiting in like a ticket line or to get into an amusement park or whatever it was. And so I asked somebody like what this line was for, and they, proceeded to tell me it was for the bar. So we stand there, we wait, and then when we get to the front of the bar, it's like this blue plastic acrylic bar, and it's like, Amstel Light, Heineken, Jack and Coke, vodka soda, all the usual shit. And I just kind of looked at my brother at that point and thought to myself, like, knowing how much money people were spending on weddings and events of such. And then, especially this wedding, because it had like 400 people in this room. It was very decadent, right? I'm sure it was super expensive. And this just seemed like the one element we wanted to participate in the most, but it was the most overlooked, right? Like everything else had such an attention to detail, but this didn't have any attention to detail.
Cupcakes and the flowers.
Yeah, it just kind of seemed like if we put liquor
folded
out there and we have fucking mixers, like we'll keep the crowd tame, It didn't seem but like trying to offer anything that would be like exciting, delicious.
Like an experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That just, I don't know, it just didn't. And so, I kind of came back home. And I remember, it's funny, I was just thinking about this the other day because it was, nowadays it's having all these responsibilities, as a business owner. It's great to have like your moment of success, but there's also a lot of pressure that comes with that, right?
Yeah.
And I can remember like those early days, where I was just thinking of the idea of Craft Cartel, right? I was just kind of like motivated at this point in my life to think of some light bulb moment. And my whole thing was always like how I could take bartending and like take that to the next step. And I didn't want to be like a bar owner. Like I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to go borrow millions of dollars, from just like fucking, I don't know, financial sharks and just like work my ass off in debt for 5 years and just be a slave to investors and shit like this. And not to mention like very risky, but I didn't know how else that would translate. And so then, like I said, I started going to these weddings and it just sort of clicks. Like, why is nobody doing like mobile mixology? I think I Googled mobile mixology at that time. It wasn't even like a fucking like search term, like cocktail catering wasn't even like fucking being hashtagged on like Instagram, like 10 years ago. And there was only like a handful of people that were doing it, like in the country. It was like one person in Hawaii named Garnish. There was Icebox Bar in Charleston, South Carolina. And there was Snake Oil out in San Diego. And I think there might have been one other person up in Chicago, but I just don't remember the name. So at this point, it just like, it really wasn't much of a thing.
It was reserved for the bar scene.
It was reserved more for like catering services. So anytime you would throw an event of any kind, especially weddings, your bar service would just be provided and included in whatever prices it was that you were paying your catering services. But they weren't staffing like in-house mixologists, they weren't putting anybody in charge that was like pushing the creative level of what they were offering from, the bar, right? They were doing that in the kitchen. I mean, I would go to high-end weddings that had all sorts of fancy, decadent food. You could get that in a lot of places, but you couldn't get that, from the bar. And that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, I see a lot of wasted food at a wedding. You don't see a lot of wasted liquor. You see a lot of like fucking weddings run out of shit, you know what I mean, from the bar. I've never seen them run out of food, So, that's what people do. They go to party, they go to dance and shit like this. And so I just thought that it was a tremendously underutilized area of the event space. No one was really doing this. I thought like, Miami being Miami, tremendously event-driven city, it just kind of made sense. And so it was like, this is my fucking out, like there was still a lot of things I was going to need to learn, a lot of, still licenses I was going to need to operate, but it wasn't going to cost me the kind of money it was going to cost me to go open a bar. Like I could do this myself, realistically. I didn't need to go borrow money from people. It was just going to be a fucking grind, because everything in the event industry is kind of like based on your reputation, right? So it was going to take time. It was just whether or not, I wanted to go out there and like pound the fucking pavement do things for super cheap, get my name out there, get in front of people, start to build that reputation, build that house, right, brick by brick, and that's kind of how I did it. And so that's really how it all started. It was just me running to the end of my rope in the restaurant and bar industry, needing an out, and just kind of like being in a point in my life where, I was like freshly married, I'm just like super happy and fucking positive, and just trying to like think of, like in a good space, just trying to think of, something that's going to get me out of a place I don't want to necessarily be in. And I thought of fucking Craft Cartel, and it wasn't easy, man. Like I struggled for years, it took me years to like even get to the point where I quit my job to do this shit just for myself, so.
And that's that inflection point, right? That every entrepreneur kind of has to, go all in on this thing. And it sounds so cliche because now, everyone and their mom wants to be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, of course.
But
now it's cool.
Being, doing it like at that time when, correct me if I'm wrong, like it's not really like in like the most in fashion thing. Like it was a risk. Like you actually had to sit down and evaluate like, oh, I just got married and I'm about to do like one of the riskiest things like ever. And so that's really cool. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for you as an entrepreneur. And first and foremost, like how you go about like your mindset towards it. I've learned so many things just speaking to you and learning from you, working with you for this all this time. And I just like how long-term you are on everything. Like every investment, and we're definitely going to talk about some of your other ventures and fun ideas and stuff as well. But, you're always doing it from a long-term frame. Where'd you learn that?
So it's interesting, I don't come from any sort of like my family, we didn't sit around a dinner table barely ever anyway, but if we did, we weren't talking about like finances and investing and shit. Still to this day, my mother's never bought her own house, my dad's owned a few of them, but like, they're truly blue collar people, like just graduated high school and that was about it, and just kind of went to work and grinded.
Same here.
So that's what I really learned, right? Like growing up as a kid, I just learned how to work hard and fucking grind. Like I always say that the best lesson I ever learned in my life was when my mom was raising me as a kid. The thing she did the best was, sometimes like a kid might say like, when I grow up, I'm going to do this. I want to be a football player. I'm going to be a fucking astronaut. I'm going to be, I don't know, just something totally wild and outlandish. And the parent or the teacher tries to reel that in, right? Because they don't want the kid's expectations to get too inflated. My mother like did the opposite. It was like my mother would pump me full of this like, you can do anything you want to do in your life just as long as you're willing to sacrifice, right? So that was like the mentality I grew up with, was like, you can have anything, you can do anything in the world that you want to. You just have to be willing to sacrifice to get there. Like there's no elevator to the top of a mountain. Like you have to fucking climb it. Like that's it, right? But you can get to the top. Like there's a path, So that was always my mentality. So nothing ever seemed impossible. It wasn't like, oh, I'm dreaming. It was like, no, I'm manifesting, right? I just had to go apply. That was it. So like the long-term thing, I think like I started to learn as I started to become like a little bit more successful in business, right? Because I had to learn like finance first, right? Like I didn't come from money. I didn't have money, right? I was just a fucking another struggling bartender, for a long time. Just focused on like backpacking around the fucking planet and spending every dime that I had, right?
Yeah.
But then as I started making more money and I would have to go sit down with my accountant every year, I would like get these fucking financial lessons for like 60 minutes, right? And so I started to understand like, it kind of blew my mind. Like when I had like a financial professional telling me like, okay, like now you need to start taking on debt, right? Like you need to start investing your money, taking on debt because of this reason, for tax purposes and shit. So, it was a lot of that. It was a lot of just like kind of learning as I go. But also like, I don't believe, and I don't think I ever have believed in any sort of like get rich quick scheme. Like it's not a thing, like I said it to you a moment ago, like there's no elevator to the top, right? But I do believe in the climb. Like I'm a firm fucking believer in that, like something that's always been like a part of my life since I was in high school, because I always played a lot of sports, I just kind of like took a dip in high school for a while, but Like when I moved to San Diego, I got a lot more serious about like fitness, right? And I always go through these cycles in my life where like I get in really good fucking shape, and then like I kind of get there and I live there for a moment, and then I drop off for a bit, and then I fucking like I need to get back to the bottom and get motivated again and like, you know, shoot myself back up. And I've been doing that for like fucking years. And I always would like meet people along the way, you know, even people who like work for me, you know, like who like, oh, I want to come to the gym with you, right? It's like, okay, no problem. Like, you know, I hear all this fucking talk about how you're going to get in shape, you know what I mean? And all this stuff, and you're going to get healthy. And we go to the gym, we work out, and then the next morning at 6 o'clock when I call you, it's like, oh, I'm sore as fuck. It's like, well, listen, like you don't build muscle and you're not getting in shape without going through soreness, right? Like as an entrepreneur, you're not going to be successful without going through a lot of problems. Like you're going to fail a bunch of times, you know? And the more you fail, if you learn to accept it, right? Like you learn from it, you get better and shit. So like everything is kind of a long-term process, I think. Like when you really are talking about things really panning out and really working out, I think that it's just sort of a natural progression, you know? Like you're investing in fucking stocks and crypto. Well, the generality of being successful with that is to hold long-term. If we're talking about making money and investing in real estate, the same shit. Like not everybody, like a lot of these people, you know, these real estate gurus, they didn't make that shit like in a year or 2 years, man. Like, you know, they made it over the course of time and accumulation, you know? And being in business is the same shit. Some people come out, start a company, fucking skyrockets, they have major success in like the first year or two. And some people build, right? And then become something fucking massive. So everything's long term, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of it is, it sounds so cliche, and like I know this term is so abused these days, but like it does come down to that mindset. Like the person who is willing to wake up and put in some miles versus the person who just wants to stay in bed, and you know those hours when it's like nice and warm and comfy. It's like, you know, different breeds of people, and like that hard work is something that, you know, I used to feel like right when I got into my entrepreneur journey, I used to not feel resentment, but I used to feel not even jealousy, but I was like, man, I wish that I did have parents who instilled those financial lessons that I learned about business and entrepreneurship. There's no entrepreneurs in my family.
Yeah.
Like none. Dad drives a bus, mom's like a nurse. So, you know, it's about the hours you put in is how much you get, right?
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
growing up seeing that, it's like, okay, cool. But like they work so hard and like they're never like getting ahead.
Right.
It's always paycheck to paycheck and always just, you know, and so love them to death, but I was always like, I almost was like, oh man, like this kind of, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty lazy actually. I'm like gonna work really, really hard to never have to do that.
Right. Right.
So, you know, but the mindset that has evolved and has changed, and I'm so actually grateful for them, for what they have instilled in me, which is that hard work. And when times are tough, especially as an entrepreneur, and Lord knows, in even the 3-4 years Jamie and I have been doing this thing, you know, we've had like the lowest of lows and the highest of highs, and like it's such a roller coaster. So would you say that you're a pretty like extreme person? Like, are you?
Oh yeah.
Are you?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
People have told me, like, you know, in the past, several people that like I've worked for or managed me was like, man, you would know your mood as soon as you walk in the fucking room, right? Like if you're in a good mood, you know it's written on your face. When you're in a shit mood, it's also written on your face. And I agree with them because, you know, again, just kind of part of how I was raised. Like I always joke around and say, like, you know, I was raised by a single mom who was like a fucking pit viper, like a bulldog of a mentality. And like, she was very much like, you know, like nobody fucks with me, nobody fucks with my family or my kid. You know, my mom's tiny, like I'm a small fucking guy. My mother's smaller than me. So it was like, it was very much like, it was bark loud, bite loud, all those fucking things, right? So my mom doesn't hold back. So I've never been somebody either. And actually, to be honest, man, it's something that I've prided myself on a lot, you know, especially like with the people that I manage, you know, people who work for me. You know, I always tell them, like, look, I'm an honest guy. I'm going to always tell you the truth, you know. Sometimes the truth sucks. That's the truth, right? So I get it. But I would rather, you know, be open and honest as a business owner than, you know, keep everything in fucking secret because, you know, it's the corporate way and shit like this. I don't know. It's not how I personally like to do things. So yeah, I just feel like, look, there's not enough brutally honest fucking people in this world, and I appreciate those that are, you know. So it's, you know, I'm definitely an extreme guy. In the event industry too, you go through a lot of fucking extremes. So
well, yeah, bringing it back to that, you know, you've done some events for some pretty interesting clients, and you've dealt with some insane events, and like it's become second nature to you. And I know we were kind of even talking about this recently, like. Obviously, you are phenomenal at it, and you do love it, and it is, you know, something that you have been passionate about. But it's not the only thing that you know you love. I want to kind of get it, like now being like a decade into like doing this, right? What's like the headspace? What's next with this this industry? Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve in it?
I want to do a lot of things. I think from, you know, if we're talking just the event space in general, you know, I always think like continuing to dominate the space that you operate in is still very important, right? Like not taking my foot off the gas. Like I'm still trying to push myself out there into the world. I still think like, I mean, when you take weddings alone, I think there's like, I don't know, 48,000 weddings a year in Miami-Dade County, just weddings alone.
What?
So
that's crazy.
Yeah, if you think about like all the destination weddings and weddings that we have here, yeah, it's astronomical. So then you factor in all these other events that happen, you know, just private parties, all this stuff. Anyway, it's like Gary always says, like I believe in a world of abundance. So there's a lot more out there that I haven't captured. I think sometimes like we feel a little bit of success in our business and we think like, oh, okay, we've made it there, like we're there. You know, it's like no, I'm trying to just keep fucking going. You know, so that's definitely one thing for me. You know, the next biggest thing that I'm working on right now is Jolly Hour, right? So cocktail mixes, you know, something that I had to get kind of like a little creative on, you know, 8 years ago when we started doing this at events was, you know, you were slinging these like delicious cocktails to fucking at an open bar, like 250, 300 people. It's not like it is
That's
in a
regular
fucking bar,
drunks.
you know? That's a lot of people like just fucking ordering crazy amounts of things because there's no check at the end, right? So we needed a way and like a pretty good system to be able to obviously like pump out drinks. So batching cocktails, right? Which is something like I fucking invented, but you know, just being able to formulate everything into like a 750 milliliter bottle so that we would make the measurements really simple and easy because we can get everything into this fucking concoction besides basically the alcohol. We make the measurements really easy. Everything becomes very streamlined. We can serve guests faster, but also we end up with consistency, right? So, you know, I started to think recently, like, man, you know, that sounds like a quintessential problem for a lot of like bigger, more commercialized establishments, right? So, you know, right now we're trying to partner with like cruise ships, you know, hotels, casinos, just as a few examples, you know, where like basically we're HPPing our product. So we're taking, you know, we're making handcrafted, all fresh ingredients, fresh citrus, fresh juices, spices, herbs, you name it. And we're basically HPPing that product. So we get like 90 to 120 days, you know, of shelf life in cold storage. Which will allow us to basically partner with these types of people and be able to sell them product that they can just fucking, hey, the bartender takes this 2 ounce measurement, 1.5 ounces of alcohol, shake, strain, you know, put a garnish on it, voila, right? And it does a lot of great things. It's like, you know, the reason why I kind of started to think this way was because I would get more and more contacts from people about doing consulting. And the only problem I had with consulting was it was very time consuming, right? Versus like the event industry is also time consuming, but it's crammed in, right, into like a tight time frame, right? So like the week of an event, you know, or of multiple events, you know, that's when the chaos is going to happen. But with consulting, it would be a lot, right? It could be weeks of training staff and things like this, and, you know, testing out all the cocktail recipes and tasting the, you know, the management and all these other things. So I always kind of had like an issue with taking on consulting gigs based on what I had going on in my life with events and all this other stuff. So I was contacted by a cruise ship partner to do consulting for one of these cruise ship lines. And that was kind of like my launch pad to sort of take this thing off, right? Because it's the perfect sort of avenue for them, right? They have high turnover, so they're constantly going through staff. They need things that are easily trainable.
How can you
they need
streamline
quality
it as
product.
possible?
How do you streamline it as possible? Voila, here you go, right? So that's what I'm getting into. I want to find, basically a way to take what it is that we're doing with cocktail mixers, essentially, right? And expand it outside of South Florida. So that's kind of the next big thing that I'm doing, right? Is basically Jolly Hour cocktail mixes. And then I'm also doing like cocktail kegs and bottled RTDs. So if you don't know what RTD stands for, it's ready to drink, right? We're familiar with like Trulies and fucking High Noons and
White
all
Claws.
these other White Claws and other bottled and canned fucking concepts that they have out there. But as many of them as I've tried, I've just never had any that's like actually good, like actually quality, right?
So true.
Sorry, but they're all just like fucking sweet and they're super sugary and whatnot. And I get it, it's because they're limited on the ingredients that they can put in there,
Then it won't be fresh.
Well, it won't be, it won't have fucking shelf life, right? It can't travel in dry storage and stuff like this. So, again, Miami being Miami, like super event-driven, party-driven city, I have this idea to just kind of do this locally throughout like Broward County, West Palm Beach, and Miami, where we're doing these 5-liter cocktail kegs, nitro kegs, screw in a fucking cartridge, boom, pull a tap, stick a glass under there with ice, 40 cocktails in a fucking keg, right?
I love that.
Yeah, 40 cocktails in a keg, $200, $25 for delivery. It's like $5 a fucking cocktail in a city that sells cocktails for, I think the last time we went for cocktails it was like $25 a fucking drink.
Yeah,
something like that. So
I've gotten so used to that now when I go to any other city outside of Miami,
it's like fucking mind blowing, right?
Wait, what? No, you guys messed up this bill.
Yeah, I think I was buying like $6 or $7 beer in Saudi Arabia, and I thought that was actually fucking cheap. And I was like, yeah, because they probably charge me like $13 a fucking beer in Miami. It's awful. It's awful.
With the service to go like this and all that. But anyways.
It's wild. So yeah, so there's that. Bottled cocktails, again, same thing, handcrafted ingredients every single week, hand filling bottles, and just sending those out for weekly deliveries, so just like pumping through delivery orders in all 3, tri-counties down here in South Florida. So I got all that going on. And then I'm starting to like get into these, these real estate fucking things, man. So that's kind of my next thing right now.
It's exciting, man, because you're like one of the people, I know and we get to work with who I think is like a true entrepreneur. Like you got that actual
serial entrepreneur.
Exactly. Like you actually are about that life. Like I don't know how else to put it. But like you're always thinking like when there's some kind of inefficiency, and I've seen you get frustrated with things. Like I know you. Like when something like
oh yeah, I have. So there's a new one that I need to find a way to fix, which is like, I don't know if you're with me on this, but I get so pissed that we live in a world where we pay $8 for a coffee to be made by a person on a fucking $8,000 or $10,000 coffee machine. And the fucking coffee is atrocious.
Yeah.
Like I cannot, not to be a coffee snob, but like I cannot fucking stand. Like I take the top off of a coffee, right, to like pour the sugar in to go, and it's like there's fucking air bubbles in there, and you already know like this thing's fucking scary. It's gonna taste like, this is like fucking motor oil with a white cloud.
I might as well go to Dunkin' at that point.
Fucking Dunkin' Donuts might make better coffee than some places that I've fucking had out there. It's so bad, man. I don't understand. Like, who the fuck is training these people? Why do they have this job? It's like weathermen and fucking baristas. Like, the only 2 people on the planet can do their job incorrectly and then somehow still have the fucking job at the end of the day. It's baffling. So we need to figure, like, if an espresso pod can make a better coffee than this $8 fucking coffee that's handmade by her on that $10,000 machine, then there's something fucking going wrong. And so we need to figure something out. So I'm determined to figure out, like, an automated fucking... I bet you we go to Japan or China, they have like there's got to be some automated fucking like latte, cappuccino, like espresso fucking wall space. Like I don't even need a whole fucking cafe. We need like a wall that makes the perfect coffee. Like the perfect coffee hole. I don't know, something like this.
Well,
Maybe,
look,
like just brainstorm the fucking idea.
You're talking.
Stick your cup in.
You're talking to
not one of those
somebody,
shit machines either that you get in an airport.
No,
that, like,
not
powder,
the machine.
the fucking
like
powder
cappuccino.
milk. No,
like
that's fucking atrocious. No,
cafe.
No,
like,
I mean like a fucking. There's like we need like a robot AI thing making coffee.
Look, we've got a little bit of an audience here today, and I could speak for all of them on this one because we were literally having this exact conversation today.
See, it's a problem.
I'm not gonna name names of some of these shops, man, but like we've got Bebidos, this fucking spot that is in this building, and they're charging the $8. And look, it's convenient because we're there, so it's like fuck it. I have my meetings there, I got my breakfast there sometimes, and whatever. And like, oh my god, bro,
it's so frustrating.
It irks me.
The person who works the hardest in the whole process of your coffee is the guy that grew the fucking bean, and he makes the least amount of money. That chick makes drastically more money, and she's incompetent and even just fucking like patting it down, squeezing the button, and knowing how to fucking properly heat.
Oh my god! If these
like the
farmers,
fact that people don't understand you could even burn coffee is something that pisses me off.
Yeah.
Like it's a fact that people should understand and learn in life. It should be like something we should throw in school curriculum. Like fucking understand the process of how coffee should be made and the fact that you can burn fucking milk, you asshole.
Trust me, Richie, you're talking to a guy, like, I'm very passionate about coffee as well. This is one of my failed businesses.
Deep drip coffee?
It's just it's on pause right now. All right, we'll be resuming it when I have more bandwidth.
Is this Colombian coffee?
Yeah.
I figured. Yeah.
And it's, look, we started this company, my cousin and I, Suraj, and timing wasn't right, but look, it was because of that. Like, how many times have we gone and got a shit coffee and paid so much for it, and it's just absolute.
No, we got to automate it.
And so we went and we made sure we sourced the beans that we love and all this stuff. And we even went down to Colombia. We went to the actual farms, straight to the source. Like, saw how the beans are grown, like in these Colombian mountains. That even all my Colombian friends were like, "Why the fuck are you going there?" It's like something that I feel like you can relate with because you travel off the beaten path. We kind of did that. And, long story short, like my bigger point is that, those farmers can't even afford to drink their own coffee.
No.
Right? So like, there's a fundamental problem there. And look, I'm happy, maybe outside of this podcast, maybe after this episode, we're gonna have a conversation about the coffee business. Do a breakout room.
Do a deep drip coffee.
Let's
brainstorm.
Revive the company and save people from this atrocious. Bro, they're talking about fucking, and then they had 20%, and then they had the gall to turn the fucking iPad towards you.
I just
the default setting is 20%. Like,
and I feel like, listen, you know what they should do? I feel like if you're gonna put the tip screen up, right, as a barista, it needs to be at the receivable counter. Like, let me pick up my fucking coffee, and then when I look at the fucking thing, then I'll determine whether or not I'm gonna leave you a tip. Because I just left you a tip. I can't go ask for that back. That's a real dick move. Go back and say, hey, you fucked up my coffee, throw this in her face, and then go ask her for the tip back.
I've never heard of reverse tips.
So reverse tips, like, no, why not? You eat your fucking meal and you drink everything in a restaurant before you sign that check and you leave a tip, right? Like, you receive your service.
Whoa.
I'm leaving
this
you
is
the tip,
groundbreaking.
and you haven't
right
even
here.
made me the fucking coffee yet. Like, the coffee should be made, and then you decide, like, yo, that was a dope fucking coffee. Like, I'll tip the shit out of you for that because you did a glorious job.
I think that's what the original tipping like philosophy was.
And then it just fucking flipped.
And then it became like gratuities included, but we want 20% plus on everything on top of that. And then the Miami fee, and then the South Beach tax.
Yeah, well, that's like a unique thing to South Beach because South Beach is fucking scumbag, and that's what we do. But I'm talking specific to like the barista thing. We need to reverse that. Like, just maybe not even pay for the coffee. Maybe just order the fucking coffee. You make it. If it's sufficient, here, take my card. Fucking, and show me the gratuity screen. I'll pay for the coffee. Because otherwise, like, we have to go through this awkward point of me returning the fucking coffee and being that guy in the coffee shop. Stop the fucking line. Made this guy late for work because I don't do that. You know what I do? I'm the sucker. I leave with the shitty coffee. That's what fucking happens.
We all
I'm fucked.
do.
Exactly. We all do. That's the problem.
No one wants to be that guy.
I know. That's
Like,
the thing.
yeah.
Sometimes like I feel like I need to be that guy and I can't. So we need to reinvent that process for more men like us.
It's all good, Richie. We'll fix this.
We'll fix this. This all started because I don't know if you've noticed this or have experienced it recently yourself, but the airline industry, which has sucked tremendously anyway, has substantially sucked recently, really bad.
Pushing.
Very, very, very bad. And so I've been having all these ridiculous fucking things happening. And I kind of
Oh, talk to me about Spirit Airlines, Richie.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Let's hear about Spirit.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you, in addition to Spirit Airlines, what I've also learned on my vacation recently is that Air Canada is the Spirit Airlines of fucking Canada.
Dude,
undoubtedly. Without a doubt.
Get me
clearly
started on
Air
Canada,
Canada
Richie.
is the Spirit of fucking Canada. So it's good to know that we're not the only country on the planet with a totally dog shit fucking airlines, because Canada...
I'd prefer to fly Ryanair. I've had no issues with Ryanair, and to me,
Trash.
It's better than Spirit.
They fed us food that I wouldn't feed to an animal.
Ryanair?
No, Air Canada. It was awful.
Oh my God, Air Canada! I can't.
It was atrocious.
It's the worst airline ever, and oh my God.
Every fucking airlines was delayed. They couldn't even figure out a gate situation. We were fucked. It was I was in Montreal. I was trying to catch my flight to fucking Zurich. And the gate breaks down, so then they tell us to go to another gate. We all rush to that fucking gate, and they tell us, no, wait, they fixed the gate, so go back to that original gate, run over there. This proceeds to happen fucking 6 or 7 times until eventually they just get us to a fucking fake gate, put us in buses, trek us over to the other one. It's fucking, I don't know. We end up arriving late 4.5, 5 hours, and they're supposed to reimburse you a certain portion of money if they're more than a certain amount of hours late. And of course, I don't know, they claim they weren't. They were claiming, no, we're just 2.5 hours
don't
late.
Get me started. Richie, don't get me started, bro. Air Canada is a shit show. The airline industry as a whole has just taken a whole dive. And actually, I was talking to my buddy about this. How much do I put of this?
So equal parts. Just whatever you just put this about the same amount, and put the same amount of this. Voila.
Cool. I'm
Easy.
Basically a cocktail connoisseur.
Basically a fucking mix. Okay, that was way too much sparkling.
Oh, shit.
Hurry up, chug it. There you go. Attaboy. Nice. Good job. Let me put that over there.
Sorry, Mom. Yeah, so Air Canada, absolute shit. All these airlines, they're not, they just don't care anymore. And a buddy of mine actually gave me a solution that I was like, wow, I can't believe that this might actually work. And it's what the airline industry used to be. And apparently it was reserved for people who could actually afford to travel. And so actually making things more expensive. When you have these low cost airlines, you've democratized budget airlines.
That's their technical fucking term. Budget airlines.
Budget airlines. You democratize travel so much that now you have everyone and their mom thinking they're a digital nomad and can hop around from every city to city, take flights everywhere. But if you just restrict the supply of these flights and make it a luxurious experience again to be able to fly, you're going to think twice before your flight, right?
I mean, that, or if they just gave a fuck about customer service. If they had...
But how could they? They don't have the margin.
There's regulation that protects them more, I feel like. For example, I'll give you an example. It was my disaster trying to come back from Nashville, right? So my flight gets flat out canceled according to weather issues. But there was no weather issues. Not in the city I was taking off, not in the fucking city where I was landing, right? It's a 2-hour flight. So it would take a drastic fucking change in 2 hours for that flight not to be able to go. But if they claim that it's weather related, right? They basically have no level of responsibility.
No,
there's no
that
level
happened
of
to us.
responsibility, financially. They don't have to put you up in hotels. They don't have to reimburse you for the fucking flight. They don't have to do shit. Nothing. So they just basically, it just gets waived, right? But that's what I mean. I think there needs to be more responsibility on their end that like if you cancel a fucking flight, you got to like reimburse every dollar back to everybody. If someone's stuck in a city, you got to put them up in a hotel. Like I can remember even shit like that happening when I was a kid. Nowadays they like throw you a $5 fucking voucher.
Oh my God.
Which like can't buy you anything literally besides like a candy bar, and they're like, here, you know, go fucking feed yourself for the next 10 hours on like peanuts and Snickers, you fuck. And you're like,
it happened to my mom
so
when I flew her to Miami. You know, Air Canada. I mean, Toronto Pearson Airport.
You're a shitty son for flying your fucking parents on Air Canada.
Hey, look, after fighting with them for like many months, they gave me a $250 voucher, which was like a win.
It's like but it's a slap in the face at the same time. It's like fucking,
oh, absolutely. We're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that I wasted. We won't get into the details until after this podcast. But the Air Canada flight, I mean, I hate Air Canada, but long story short, like, you know, the airline industry, they don't care. But the one thing I will say, they don't have a lot of margin to operate to begin with.
that's their fucking problem. You're an entrepreneur. It's like if I'm involved in an industry, in a business, like I understand what my margins are, right? Like I understand what it is I'm here to fucking make. Like, I mean, you know, it's not for me. It's fine if you can't operate based on the margins that you can charge for a fucking plane ticket, then don't. But I also kind of find that hard to believe, you know? Like, you used to get better service and you used to get more out of a flight. Yep. And by the way, like, this is my biggest thing this is a North American problem. Like, this is a fucking North America problem, and maybe a Europe problem. But, like, in a lot of other places I travel on the fucking planet, like, this doesn't happen. Like, I've been on 1-hour flights in the Middle East this summer that fed me, like, fucking gourmet fucking meals. Like, you can't get more than peanuts on a fucking 5-hour flight across the country in the United States of America. Like, it's ridiculous, you know? Like, I remember, like, my first flight ever going to Southeast Asia, I was flying Air Anna. I think this might be one of the greatest fucking airlines I've ever flown in my life. Air Anna. And, like, I remember it was, like, 15 minutes or 20 minutes before the airline's supposed to take off. And we're asking the front desk lady, like, hey, is this thing gonna board soon? Like, she's like, yeah, yes. You know, like, it's gonna take off like any fucking second, you know? And I'm like, how the fuck are they gonna board this entire, it's like a big ass fucking plane, right? It's like one of these like 2-story fucking joints. And sure as shit, like, they call the flight up and they don't even do like here, you know, they do the fucking, there's like a group A, group B, group C, D, whatever the fuck it is, or a number. There, it's like, no, we're just boarding every motherfucker on this plane at the same time because they got like 12 of these ladies taking tickets. Oh. Not one fucking guy scanning every ticket, checking IDs. They got like 12 of these ladies just like doop, 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 and they're just like shuffling fucking people through there. Sure as shit, it's like 15 minutes later, everybody's in their fucking seat with a seatbelt on, ready to rock and roll, you know? And then they're serving you like fucking fantastic food, like, you know, you don't get like the piece of shit little like headphones, you know, you get like quality ones. They give you blankets, they're not like charging you for them.
Nice experience.
You know? It's like yeah, exactly.
I felt the same thing in India, man.
Yeah.
So talk to me
outside of America.
Talk to me. Let's get you this way a little bit. Just want to make sure that how's that looking? Good. Cool. Talk to me about the importance for you of travel in your life. Obviously, it keeps coming up in this conversation, and I know that business is, you know, the fuel, it's the vehicle, it's the thing that keeps everything going. Yeah. But just knowing you travel is the thing. Talk to me about that, though.
Bro, I mean, so for one, it's a tax write-off. I'm just kidding.
Always comes back to business.
It is a tax write-off. But anyway, no. So it was years ago. I was in high school. It was the first time I ever left the country. And I went to Europe for a few weeks with like a bunch of kids from high school. And I remember just like being there and seeing all the old ass architecture and thinking to myself, like, man, nothing like this. Nothing looks like this in America. And just kind of thinking like I just went to a few cities just across the Atlantic Ocean. Imagine what the rest of the world looks like, right? And so I just kind of like ended up with this infatuation of seeing as much of the planet as I could. And the more I would travel, I just felt like the more I would change as a person, right? Like I feel like a lot of people in their day-to-day lives are always trying to implement things that are going to change them as a person. Whether it's like, I don't know, you're listening to motivational speaking, or you're exercising, or you're meditating, doing fucking yoga, whatever it is, right? For me, traveling is that thing. I mean, I still get to try to do all those other things as well, but traveling for me is like all of that in one, you know? So it helps me appreciate, for example, right? Like what I have, like if you've traveled to some places in the world, you know, like some third world countries and shit, it'll make you appreciate like the basic things, like a hot shower, you know? Like I've been places for like a couple months where like hot showers were not a common thing,
It's not
you
even
know?
an option.
Western
most places.
toilets were not common things, you know?
Yeah.
Wi-Fi didn't exist in like a place for like 3-4 days or some shit, you know? So a lot of that was, you know, for me was just to grow as a person. The people I meet traveling, you know, is one of the biggest things that fuels me to keep traveling, you know? Like I always say nowadays, at least in my life, like I stay in touch more with people that I met traveling than I do that I even like grew up with or that I had long paths with, you know?
Yep.
And probably because those people that I had long histories with in the past, you know, we've gone separate ways. So we don't have as much in common anymore. But those people I met when I was backpacking in fucking Thailand or Vietnam or whatever, Cambodia, we got the same mindset. Like we got the same kind of thing going on, right? We may have different budgets, we may be traveling for longer, we may be from different countries, have different first languages, but the reason why we're here is the same, because we believe in the experience and not the how many fucking things I can amass in my life. So I know I've said it to you before, you know, the only thing we die with in this lifetime is the memories, right, that we have. That's it, memories and time. All the other shit is borrowed. So like, you know, the car, the house, all the personal possessions, any fancy watches you may have and shit, none of that stuff's coming with you, you know? So that's it. I like traveling because it's the ultimate moment of freedom. You know, you can disconnect. And even, you know, look, I mean, I still work when I'm traveling, you know? I got my computer or my phone and shit. It's always got a SIM card in it so that I can connect. But I also feel blessed that I can do that. Like that I could work, make money, and still conduct things while traveling, right? But I don't know, it's just, I can't get the same high spending money on anything else in the fucking planet. Like I don't care, man. I could buy a Ferrari tomorrow. It wouldn't make me feel as excited as like traveling for the next 6 months of my life.
And one thing that really inspires me about that and about how you go about it is you still travel with your kids who are very, very young. If you want to share some of those stories.
She's 3.5 now, and she's been traveling since she was 6 months old.
Oh my gosh.
And we've taken her everywhere we've gone, you know, in the last few years. And we take her on long ass fucking trips. You know, we take her for a couple months. We take her to places that you don't see a lot of kids, you know.
So what do you guys do? You just take her on like one of those?
Yeah, so like shout out to Osprey, like the fucking the hiking backpack company. It was my daughter, right when she was born, my best friend Josh lives in San Diego. His daughter was about 1.5 years older, and I was going up to New Hampshire to see my family. Well, I was going up to Rhode Island to see my family. I was going to go up to New Hampshire to go to the mountains and shit. This is like as COVID's going on and everything. And so he tells me about this backpack that he bought that he would put his daughter in, and he would take her hiking out in like the national parks in California and shit. So I was like, all right. So I find this thing online, I buy it. That's fucking, seriously, like shout out to Osprey. That's the best thing I've bought in my fucking life in like the last 3.5 years, besides my house. Like that's by far the amount of use I've gotten out of that, the ability it's allowed me to do, places I've been able to take my daughter. Like in Bali, like, you're on a fucking moped, man. Like you're on a moped for like 8 weeks of your life. It's like, how do you get a fucking 2.5-year-old around on a fucking moped? Wow. You throw her in this backpack, you strap a fucking helmet on her, and you just blow around on the fucking streets, man, you know?
we need to get a Osprey brand deal.
Yeah, we do.
For sure.
I got so much footage of my kid in that fucking thing going to like the most extreme places.
That's incredible,
you can imagine.
man.
Yeah, for real. I need like
trust.
a fucking sponsorship from Osprey for sure.
No, I mean, Richie, look, I can relate, man. Like, you know, obviously not with the daughter thing, but like for you know, travel, how much of an impact it's had on my life. I would not be sitting here with you if I hadn't taken that leap while I was in university, while I was studying. I decided to go abroad for a semester.
Yep.
I went to Norway. and I studied in Bergen, Norway. It's not many people know that place, but it's on
I haven't been there, but I do know of it. Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's
I've
one
heard,
of the most beautiful places on the planet, man. It's like the Vikings, like their port to like the world. And oh my God, just when you're talking about nature and just beautiful, insane landscapes, incredible people, everything that you could imagine. I'm just so blessed and lucky that like that's what I was exposed to while I was in my formidable uni years.
Yeah.
I had only lived with my parents up until that point. I've never even experienced living alone.
Right.
And the friendships that I formed during that exchange and the connections I made to this day are some of my strongest bonds. And like, you guys know who you are. I have friends all over the world, friends from Brazil, from the US, from France, Germany, who all came together and had the same mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you connect on that level that some people that I grew up with and have spent decades with in my life, we're not even that close anymore.
None of my friends that I grew up with as a kid, none of them travel like to the extent that I do, or and not just like how far, but or how long or anything like that. Or if they did go out of the country, they'd go to like your main tourist destinations, And I don't know, it's just like I come from Rhode Island, right? Like fucking a speck on the map in the United States of America. Small state, tiny little town, 33,000 people, So the nature of your mind in a place like that is very small, like, in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
So I really do, like I look back on my life, man, and I'm fortunate, but I'm also one of those people, like I don't believe in luck. It's all about the choices that you made, right? Like everything for me started when I moved to San Diego, right? So after the second year of college, like in Rhode Island, I leave, I pack my shit up, I move with like $800 in my pocket and like a dog and a kennel and a fucking suitcase and my clothes, and I moved to San Diego, California, like sleep on a friend's couch. Most people thought I'd be back like probably in a few weeks or a couple months, and I didn't leave San Diego for 5 years. And that 5 years was so impactful on me in my life because I'm 19 years old. I'm 3,600 miles away from everybody that I fucking know. I can know one fucking guy in this city. That's it, one person. And so I always talk about like, I'm not like, I've never considered myself some specifically gifted person in anything, right? With the exception of maybe one thing. And it's the ability to like conversate with people, talk to people, like converse with people. Because most of my life, like, I mean, I had to do that, especially my young adult life, right? I was in San Diego, dropped in a place, I didn't know fucking anybody. I didn't have college to plug me into the system. I wasn't even going to the same university the 1 year that I did that my buddies went to. I was going to school somewhere else, right? Because I had to like transfer credits and all this other shit. So, I had to really like branch out, meet people, and by the way, I'm from the Northeast and I'm over here in Southern California, right? It was
like polar opposites,
right? I'm here, everybody's making fun of my fucking accent, you're wearing
Did you have the Boston
wearing like baggy
kind of
clothes and listening to rap music and shit. It's like everybody out here is like fucking long hair, surfs, cares
All
about
kind of
their fucking
hippies
health.
and
Yeah,
shit.
they got like tans and shit. I'm like pale white. Like fuck, I see winter like 8 months out of the year, man, So it was just, again, kind of one of those things where like it changed a lot of my mentality, like the way that I would go about my life, the things I cared about. That's when I started like giving a shit about my health and exercising and like getting into things like wakeboarding and surfing and like literally not giving a shit about money, just caring about like hanging out with friends, affording like a case of beer, like a bag of weed and fucking, go have a good time with my friends, right? As long as the waves are up, that's all I give a fuck about. Is I can afford my rent within walking distance from the sand, like that's all I gave a shit about. But then eventually, like, you grow old with that, and then that led to Club Med, that led to me, moving around, living in foreign countries, working with people from all over the world, right? So I started to become more cultured. Like I start to that happened in San Diego as well, but, it happened at a much different, higher level, like, in Club Med, right? And me making that decision to like go take a job for like fucking $800 a month just because they give me, you know, all my room and board and shit like this, and we're gonna send you to a place you don't know where you're going and shit like that, you know. So like you said it before, it's just you make these decisions and one thing kind of leads to another, and eventually, I ended up in Mexico with Club Med. I met my wife now, you know, who's now my wife. And who would have thought that would have happened, you know? And then I end up fucking here, dude, and I lose my management job at the Fontainebleau and like on my 88th day of employment. And they told me that if it had happened 2 days later, they would have just wrote me up because I would have passed my 90-day threshold. But fuck it, they were just gonna move on, right? So here I was, like in Miami, trying to do like the management fucking hotel thing, lose that, and where did I fall back into? I fell back into the bar scene. So I fell back into the bar scene when mixology was a thing, was like just becoming a thing. And I landed in the right spot with the right guy who like was passionate about his craft, and that's how I learned all this shit, and then somehow fucking took that because I started bartending in the shittiest era of bartending ever. So I couldn't have made a business out of that, like from my Dave and Buster's days. It took for a bunch of other like fucking like just here, there, and everywhere to like end up in this random place where eventually like it spawns like the confidence to go do my own thing, right? Like I literally, like I had a buddy who was like doing his own thing here with like a team building company, and I was helping him on the mic and shit, you know, staffing events and stuff. And then my brother was trying to do like some, you know, bar concepts with his buddy Sean. So the closest people to me, and this is why I always say like circle of influence, right? Like the closest people to me were doing shit for themselves. And it was making my mind think like, what the fuck, wait, like if my brother could fucking do this, I could do this, you know? If fucking this guy, Scotty fucking Dunk could do this, I could do this shit,
yeah.
You know? Because like you start to observe certain things, and like if you got confidence in yourself, you're like not, this isn't like a dick, but you're like, I'm better than this fucking guy.
Oh, that's how my whole podcast
like,
started, bro. Like when I started the podcast, I still worked a 9-to-5 job for the federal government of Canada. Mm-hmm. Like for years after starting this thing. And I had to find my confidence because I kept interviewing people who were entrepreneurs who were making millions of dollars. I just naturally was able to have them on my show. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck it is about me, but I can just bring it out on people. We just talk shit, we have a good time. And enough of me watching people like, yo, what's this guy got that I don't?
A lot of times they don't.
What's Richie doing that's so special that makes him so? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think I could do that. I just didn't like have the vehicle. I didn't know how.
You just weren't doing it. That's exactly. It. You just weren't doing it, right? Exactly. It's like the difference between where you want to be and where the fuck you're at is doing it, and that's it. It's a pretty simple fucking mathematical formula.
Exactly.
You know?
Looking back at
it, doesn't mean
like,
there's not a lot of bumps in that road from where you're at and where you want to be. I'm not
100%.
saying it's fucking easy. I'm not saying it's simple. You know, just wave a wand or just go do this shit tomorrow. And like, no, you don't get in shape in a day. But if you eat right and you work out 5 days, 6 days, 7 days a week, guess what the fuck happens? Guess what happens? It's not magic, right? Like it happens. It takes
simple,
shape,
but it's not easy.
Well,
right?
yeah, it depends. If your mind isn't strong enough to do it, then yeah, 100%.
Richie, look, we're running well over time on this pod, but I'm having the time of my life. I want to rapid fire some questions with you because I'm going to have you back on, man. Okay. We're going to do this multiple times.
Rapid fire.
Let's go for some fun questions here. So, what is the worst tequila brand in the world?
Ah, fuck. All right. No offense to the people because I've met them and did an event for him, the man who started this, but Patron, I don't know. On me, it's fucking not a fan. Okay. So I'm throwing Patron in there.
All right, why?
I mean, legitimately, I'm not a fan of the taste. You know, look, it's not like 100% Blue Weber agave, but you know, I'm also one of those people that like, you know, you've done really well with the product, so shout out to you. I'm not like hating on it, but it's just not my cup of tea. As a man who's married to a Mexican, my wife fucking hates Patron, and you don't meet many Mexicans that like it either.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth trusting them.
Well, then on the flip side, what's the best?
The best fucking tequila. Again, this is just a personal preference, right? I would probably go with like tequila ocho reposado. For me personally, like I'm gonna sip a good quality tequila, like on ice. That's what I'm gonna go for. And I'm not saying it is the best tequila. Like everybody has their own fucking preference. That's a dogfight in and of itself.
Okay, beautiful. Tom Brady or Michael Jordan?
Oh fuck! I mean, you already like Tom Brady over fucking anybody, bro. Over everybody,
Really?
everybody,
Everybody ever.
everybody,
Every
ever.
athlete.
Yeah, 100%. I think that look, I think winning, and I know some people will fucking disagree with me, but I think if you look across sports, you don't see the type of consecutive success in the sport of football, right? Outside of like maybe a 4-year time span where the Cowboys win 3 and 4, the Patriots win 3 and 4, you don't see these like time spans where like fucking teams are running the table. Like the Celtics won fucking stupid amounts of championships, like in the early days. Like so the Celtics run. I mean the Bulls, you know, running up what do you get? 6 in 10 years. Is that what it was?
Something like that.
6 in 10 years.
That's 6 and 10.
So 6 and 10, like it's an impressive statistic. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I just think like it is super impressive. But winning a Super Bowl, dude, 7 times, man, is fucking. It's just it's outrageous. I think that I think it's potential. Like if Steph Curry could rough it out for a few more years, he could fucking tie Jordan's fucking 6 for real. What does he got to get? 2 more? You tell me that motherfucker can't get 2 more championships?
Such different sports,
he get 2.
Right? Where you got
like LeBron is right there on the brink. You know what I mean? But he doesn't got the time. You know what I'm saying? Like Curry's got more time depending on what his and that's another thing. Like the biggest reason I'm gonna say Brady is longevity. You play fucking football for more than 2 decades. You racked up statistics that are like, I mean, you can't look at football quarterback statistics without seeing his name in the top 1, 2. You know, you can't. Like there's arguments, I feel like there's more arguments against MJ being the best than there is good arguments about Tom Brady.
Yeah, there's not many good ones.
There's not many good ones. There's a lot of arguments.
You can just hate the guy, which is valid. You can hate
That's
whoever.
what most people do, whatever.
But the statistics and the longevity and just the straight winning speaks for itself. I mean,
it's
look at me, bro. Like I'm a little biased.
Listen,
I'm a little fucking biased.
The man's won
here,
3 full seasons worth of games in the postseason. Okay, that's crazy.
All right, if someone could only know how to make 3 cocktails to make an entire room happy, what would they be?
Margarita, an old fashioned, and I'll say a fucking Negroni. I think Negronis are it's a pretty popular fucking cocktail these days.
What's the wildest experience you've had working events in Miami?
The wildest events. Well, unfortunately, the wildest experiences working events were probably where like fucking something went totally bananas. The wildest thing I've ever seen was getting hired for a party that was an expected guest attendance of like 150 people. And there ended up being like 650, 700 people. Oh my God. It was like the scene out of the movie Neighbors.
Project X? Or,
no,
okay.
no. Well, kind of, yeah, like Project X. But like, you know in Neighbors where like to fuck them, they invite everybody from everywhere. And it's like the whole city shows up. Yeah. It looked like that. Like there was a mob of people out in front of this house trying to get in.
Miami or New York?
I mean, I'm going to go... I respect New York more, but I'm living in Miami if I'm choosing one of the two, for sure.
Fair enough. And then this is one that, like, listeners might not understand who this person is, but this is for me. And this is my fucking podcast, so I'll do whatever the fuck I want. I want to know, what's the story of how you got to working with the Pisco Papi?
All right, so when I first moved to Miami, it was because my brother was living here, right? So when me and my wife were engaged, she was still in Mexico, and I left the resort I was working at in Port St. Lucie, and I moved to Miami. And I was like fucking just slumming it, dude, like living on my brother's couch, driving his piece of shit car, you know, to get to work. And at that time, Andre worked as a manager at Rachel's, which was a cabaret, because it wasn't like full nudity strip club, right? Okay. It was like those half nudity fucking joints, like just totally, like non-alcoholic beer, basically, right? So it's like, He was a manager there, and Rachel's was like, I don't know, maybe 3 blocks. Oh Jesus, was like 3 blocks from our apartment. So they used to go to Rachel's, like my brother and our buddy Shawnee, and so they met Andre there one night. I never ever actually like stepped foot into a Rachel's, and I'm not just saying that because of my wife. I mean, I've actually never been to a Rachel's. But yeah, so that was it. So I ended up meeting him through them. Like we would just kind of go out, party, fucking drink, go to Ted's, do all sorts of stupid shit.